The Dragon Empress lay in her great crystal palace, her massive body curled on a bed of silver silk. Her scales, which once shone like molten gold and shimmering emerald, were now dull and faded. Her eyes, deep pools of wisdom and fire, looked tired and weak. No one had seen her this way before. The healers had whispered that something was very wrong, but none could find the cause. All across the galaxy, the greatest alien healers had gathered in her palace. They came in shining robes and floating suits, carrying strange tools and glowing instruments. They hovered over the Empress, scanning her, measuring her heart, her breath, and even the energy that flowed through her body. Holograms of stars and planets spun above their heads as they tried to find a cure. "Her life force is fading," said one healer, a tall creature with 6 eyes and skin like liquid silver. "Our methods cannot revive her. We must consult the council of the ancients." Another healer shook his long, feathery head. "We have tried all known medicines and energy spells. Nothing works. She is slipping away." The Dragon Empress let out a soft, tired sigh. Her wings twitched slightly but lacked strength. She had ruled over her realm for centuries, guiding dragons and humans alike, maintaining balance between worlds. Yet now she could not even lift her head. In the corner of the palace, away from the bright, buzzing machines, a human boy quietly observed the scene. His name was Elias, a simple gardener from a small Earth colony. He had been brought to the palace not as a healer, not as a scientist, but because someone had whispered that humans sometimes had unusual ways of seeing life. Elias wore a plain brown tunic and carried a small bag of seeds. He did not understand alien science, and he had never been near a creature as large or as magnificent as the Dragon Empress. Yet he did not tremble with fear. Instead he looked around calmly. The palace glittered with colors and light, but the garden where the Empress lay was forgotten. Dust covered the leaves, small plants had wilted, and the water in the tiny fountains was stagnant. Elias noticed the cracks in the crystal floor where tiny green sprouts struggled to grow. The healers did not see the garden. They were focused only on machines and stars. They waved their hands, chanting alien words, making energy fields spin around the Empress. She closed her eyes and nothing changed. Elias knelt beside a small patch of sunlight that fell across the garden. He touched the soil gently, feeling its dryness. Then he picked up a few seeds from his bag, simple earth seeds, nothing special, and pressed them carefully into the soil. He watered them with a little water he had brought in a small flask. No one watched him at first. The healers were too busy, the Empress too weak, and the court too proud to care about a human boy planting tiny seeds. A single green sprout pushed through the soil. It was small, fragile, but alive. Elias smiled softly. He whispered, "Grow well. Help her." The Dragon Empress stirred slightly. A faint glow returned to one corner of her scales, near her shoulder. The healers paused, staring at the light, but quickly turned back to their machines, dismissing it as a trick of the sun. Elias continued quietly, planting more seeds in the cracks, adjusting the small sun panels so the light fell evenly, and brushing dust off the plants. Slowly he made a tiny patch of the garden alive again. The faint color on the Empress's scales spread a little more, though she still seemed very weak. The palace echoed with anxious whispers. "Who is that human?" asked a court advisor. "He cannot do anything." Yet the Empress's golden eye flickered open just a little to watch the boy. For centuries, dragons had seen many humans, but none had approached her with such calm, quiet care. She felt something strange, a sense of hope, small but real. Elias did not speak loudly or command the dragon. He only worked quietly, moving with patience, tending the small life around her. And the Empress, who had endured centuries of battles, council disputes, and alien politics, felt a tiny spark of warmth that she had almost forgotten. Hours passed. The healers grew frustrated. Machines beeped and whirred, but the Empress did not recover. The council of alien healers began to argue among themselves, blaming each other, their pride growing heavier than their knowledge. But in a quiet corner, the garden grew a little greener, the sunlight shifted to touch a new sprout, and the Empress's breathing deepened ever so slightly. Her mighty chest, once rising with shallow, tired gasps, now moved with a slow rhythm that suggested life had not yet abandoned her. Elias looked up from the soil and saw the faint glimmer in her eye. He smiled softly. "It will take time," he whispered. "But we can help each other." And for the first time in weeks, the Dragon Empress felt a faint flicker of hope. Something told her that this human, so small and ordinary in appearance, might hold a solution that even the galaxy's greatest healers could not see. The fading flame had not gone out yet. Elias worked quietly in the Dragon Empress's garden, moving among the plants with gentle hands. The palace was full of noise and glowing machines, but he paid them no mind. He watched the Empress closely, noticing small details that no alien healer had bothered to see. Her scales shivered when a plant wilted. Her breath slowed when the sun moved out of a certain corner. She seemed to respond to life around her, not machines, not energy fields, not alien magic. He knelt beside a cracked fountain and touched the water. It was cold, dirty, and stagnant. He shook his head softly and poured in fresh water he had brought. The droplets sparkled as they landed, and the Empress stirred slightly. One of her golden eyes flickered open, curious but still weak. Elias smiled. He had a feeling she could feel the life returning even in small ways. Elias began to explore the garden systematically. He moved through the fallen leaves and broken stone paths, noting where light fell and where shadow lingered. He found that some plants, though wilted, could grow again if the soil was loose and the sun could reach them. Others were beyond help. He cleared the dead ones, letting space for new life to take root. He planted the seeds he had brought from earth, simple flowers, herbs, and tiny shrubs. Nothing extraordinary, nothing magical, just life. Yet he believed in the strength of living things. He whispered encouragement to the tiny sprouts, as though the words themselves could help them grow. Slowly they pushed through the soil, reaching for the light. The Empress watched him work. Even in her weakened state she could feel the difference. The air in the palace shifted as green leaves lifted, as tiny flowers opened, and as the soil, once dry and dusty, became soft and alive. It was a strange feeling for a dragon who had lived centuries. Simple life, small and fragile, holding a power that no machine could match. The alien healers noticed some change, but they did not understand it. The color, her scales, it seems to respond to the garden, said one, his 6 eyes blinking in confusion. This is impossible. Life outside her body cannot affect her energy field like this. Another healer, older and slower, shook his head. It is irrelevant. The only cure is through advanced healing protocols, not gardening. Elias ignored them. He did not argue, did not try to explain. He simply continued, watering, planting, adjusting small sunlight panels and clearing away dead leaves. Each act was small, but together they made the air fresher, the light brighter, the palace quieter. And the Empress, who had grown used to strength through fear and power, felt a strange calm. Over the next hours, Elias noticed patterns. The Empress seemed to respond more to living things than to energy or medicine. When a sprout grew strong, she stirred. When a flower bloomed, her scales glimmered faintly. When he adjusted the sunlight so that warm rays touched her scales, she shifted slightly toward them, as if seeking the comfort. He realized that she was not sick in the way the healers thought. She was suffering because her life had become disconnected from the natural world. The palace, though grand, had grown sterile and cold. Machines hummed and lights flashed, but the living world, the soil, the plants, the sunlight, had been forgotten. The Dragon Empress needed not a cure from machines, but a return to life itself. Elias worked into the night. He moved silently, almost like a shadow, carrying water, adjusting light panels, pruning dead leaves, planting new seeds. The court murmured about him. A human gardener? Here. Doing what? He cannot heal the Empress, they whispered. Yet slowly the Empress began to respond. Her breathing, once shallow and weak, became steady. The pale dullness in her scales shifted, tiny flecks of gold and green appearing where the garden touched her. A spark of life returned to her eye. Not all of it, she was still very weak, but enough to show that something was working, something the greatest healers could not see. Elias noticed it too. He smiled quietly, kneeling to water a tiny sprout that had just pushed through the soil. Life is simple, he whispered, but it is strong. It can heal if you only let it. The palace watchers grew more curious. They could not ignore the changes. The Empress's room, once silent and somber, now smelled faintly of fresh earth and flowers. Light reflected off her scales in soft patterns. Even the healers had to admit, though unwillingly, that something was happening that no protocol could explain. For the first time in weeks, the Dragon Empress lifted her head slightly. She looked at the human boy kneeling in her garden, planting seeds and adjusting the sunlight. There was no fear in her eyes, no pride, only cautious curiosity. She had lived centuries, ruled realms, and seen civilizations rise and fall. And yet, she could not have imagined that a simple human, a gardener, might understand what she needed more than any alien healer. Elias felt the weight of her gaze, but he did not flinch. He continued his work quietly, believing that even the smallest act of life could be stronger than the greatest power in the galaxy. By the time the night passed, the garden had begun to look alive again. Small plants swayed in the light of the twin moons, tiny buds glimmered, and the Empress, though still weak, had lifted her chest and shifted her wings slightly. Elias looked up at her and smiled. "We will help each other," he whispered. "You will grow strong again and the garden will grow with you." And in that quiet moment, among the plants and sunlight, the Dragon Empress felt something she had not felt in centuries, a sense of hope, small and fragile but real. The garden, the human, and the dragon had begun something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. And it was only the beginning. Elias woke before dawn. The twin suns had not yet risen, and the palace was quiet except for the soft hum of the alien machines in the distance. He carried a small watering can and a few more seeds, determined to do more today. The garden had already begun to change under his care, but he knew the work was only just beginning. The Dragon Empress lay on her silver bed, her head resting on folded wings. She looked more alert than the day before. The faint gold and green shimmer on her scales had grown slightly stronger. Her breathing was steadier, though still shallow. Elias smiled softly. "Good morning," he whispered, kneeling beside her. "Today we will do more." He moved through the garden carefully, arranging the plants to allow more sunlight to reach the Empress. He dug small channels so water could flow naturally from the fountains to the roots. He planted earth flowers, herbs, and shrubs, each chosen to grow quickly and to survive in the palace climate. He adjusted the sunlight panels, letting rays fall evenly across the floor. Even the air felt fresher, warmer, and alive. The Empress watched him work, her golden eye half open. She could feel the energy of life around her. It was different from the alien magic she had known all her life. This was slow, quiet, ordinary life, but it had power. Her body, which had been weak and fading, responded. A small spark of strength returned to her limbs. Her chest rose and fell with a rhythm that seemed almost natural again. Elias noticed a pattern. Whenever he touched the soil or the plants, the Empress's scales reflected a tiny shimmer of light. When a seed sprouted or a flower bloomed, her breathing grew deeper. Slowly he realized that her health was connected to the living garden. It was not sickness in the usual sense. The Empress was weakened because life around her had been neglected. Machines and alien healing could not replace the need for living things: sun, soil, water, and growth. He began creating small ecosystems around her resting place. Tiny patches of soil were filled with water-loving plants, while other areas held shrubs that reached for the light. He built small mounds and channels so the plants and water moved naturally, feeding each other. The Empress stirred each time he made a change, sensing the life that grew closer and stronger around her. The healers noticed the changes, but they could not understand them. Her scales, they shimmer differently, one whispered, pointing to the faint glow that moved across her body as the plants grew. "It is impossible. This is not our method." Elias ignored them. He did not argue or explain. He only worked, moving gently through the garden, planting, watering, adjusting sunlight, and clearing dead leaves. Every act was small, but together they formed a living system that seemed to breathe with the Empress. By midday the garden had transformed. Where once there was dust and wilted leaves, there were now green shoots and tiny buds. Water flowed smoothly through channels, reflecting sunlight that danced across the crystal walls. Flowers opened their petals, releasing faint fragrances that filled the air. And the Empress, who had once seemed so frail, lifted her head slightly. Her wings twitched, her chest rose fully with each breath, and her eyes, though still tired, reflected curiosity and strength. Elias knelt beside her again and whispered, "See? Life grows and you grow with it. It is not magic, not machines, it is simply life." The Empress studied him. For centuries she had ruled with power, fear, and wisdom. She had seen civilizations rise and fall. She had trusted alien healers, advanced science, and the most powerful tools in the galaxy. And yet, here was a human, a gardener, teaching her something she had almost forgotten: that life itself, small, fragile, ordinary life, could heal even a Dragon Empress. Hours passed and Elias continued. He built tiny bridges for water, trimmed plants that grew too wild, and planted new seeds in gaps where life had yet to return. He spoke softly to each plant, encouraging it to grow, and watched the Empress respond to their presence. Slowly she began to lift her wings, testing her strength. The faint glow on her scales spread further, her golden eyes opening wider. The alien healers began to notice, some reluctantly. "The boy, he is changing her," one said, eyes wide. "But how? This cannot be part of our science." Elias smiled, kneeling beside a small sprout. "It is simple," he whispered. "Life helps life. She does not need machines. She needs growth, care, and patience. By the time the twin suns reached their peak, the Dragon Empress had lifted her head fully. Her wings stretched slowly, brushing the glowing plants in her garden. Her breathing was strong, her scales reflected light as if new fire ran through them. She looked at Elias, and for the first time in decades she felt alive in a way she had forgotten. The human gardener had done what no alien healer could. He had created a living cure, a garden that healed the Empress with simple life, patience, and care. No machine, no ritual, no spell could match the strength of growing things. Elias looked up at her and smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest he had never known before. "You are strong again," he whispered. "And together we will make this garden bloom even more." The Dragon Empress studied him carefully. She had trusted many beings over the centuries, but none like this human. He was not powerful, he was not famous, and he carried no alien secrets. Yet he had restored life to her body, hope to her heart, and brightness to her scales. And as the garden flourished, she realized something extraordinary. Sometimes the smallest beings can hold the greatest power. Life had returned, quietly but fully, and the Dragon Empress began to rise from weakness toward strength once more. The Dragon Empress had grown stronger, but the palace was still tense. The alien healers whispered among themselves, their pride wounded. Machines and magic, the greatest tools of the galaxy, had failed to save her. And yet, the human boy, Elias, had done what they could not. The court advisors frowned, the alien healers muttered, but the Empress, now sitting more upright, watched Elias with quiet curiosity and respect. The garden had grown lush. Flowers and herbs, shrubs and vines, filled the crystal chamber with color and life. Water flowed in small channels, reflecting sunlight that streamed through the dome above. Even the air seemed cleaner, fresher, alive. And the Empress, whose power had once seemed untouchable, now depended on this quiet human and the life he nurtured around her. The alien healers approached her cautiously. "Your Majesty," said the six-eyed healer, his voice trembling slightly, "we cannot understand this. Life cannot heal like this. It is unnatural. You are stronger, yes, but are you certain we should continue relying on his methods?" The Empress lifted her golden eye, looking directly at the healer. "You have failed," she said softly but firmly. "Your machines, your energy, your rituals, they could not bring me back. But this human, this gardener, has shown me another way. One I trust." The court gasped. The alien healers exchanged worried glances. Never had a ruler spoken against the methods of the greatest minds in the galaxy. Never had they allowed a human to take charge in the palace. Elias knelt beside a small patch of blue flowers, watering them gently. He looked up at the Empress. "It is simple," he said quietly. "I do not need your machines or your magic. Life grows. She grows with it. That is all." The Empress's gaze softened. She could feel it, the truth of his words. For centuries she had relied on strength, power, and alien science. And yet here, in the quiet of her garden, life itself was stronger than any machine, any spell, any ritual. She had a choice to make. She could follow tradition and return to the alien healers, dismissing this human, or she could trust what she felt. Trust the simple living cure that had revived her. She stretched her wings slowly, letting the light fall across them. "We will continue with his way," she declared. "Not because it is easy, not because it is convenient, but because it is right. He sees life as it is, not as we wish it to be. That is the power I need." A hush fell over the palace. The alien healers bowed their heads, unwilling to challenge her words but clearly uncertain. Some whispered to one another, questioning whether a human could truly guide the care of a Dragon Empress. Others simply shook their heads, realizing that tradition and pride had no power against what was working. Elias continued his work, planting seeds, adjusting sunlight, clearing debris. Each act was quiet, careful, deliberate. Yet the effects were immediate. The flowers grew brighter, the herbs filled the air with fragrance, and the Empress's scales glimmered with a golden-green light that had not been seen for weeks. Her chest rose and fell steadily, strong and even. The Empress watched him, and for the first time in centuries she felt a calm she had almost forgotten. The galaxy's most powerful healers, the most advanced technology, even her own long life had not been enough. Only this human, with patience, care, and simple understanding of life, had restored her. "You do not fear," she said to Elias, her voice soft but steady. "You do not demand power, wealth, or honor. You only care for life itself. That is why I trust you." Elias shook his head gently. "I am nothing, Your Majesty," he said. "I only do what life needs." She smiled faintly, a spark of warmth in her golden eyes. And yet, nothing in the galaxy has done more for me than what you do every day. The alien healers watching this exchange began to understand. Machines could calculate, magic could manipulate, but neither could feel. Neither could notice the subtle patterns of growth, the way a plant's roots drew energy from the soil or how sunlight warmed scales in just the right way. The human boy understood this, and it had brought the Dragon Empress back from the edge of death. The Empress stretched her wings fully, testing her strength. She rose to her feet, feeling the garden's life flow around her. From this day forward, she declared, he will lead the care of my palace. All who wish to help must follow him. The court murmured, some in disbelief, some in awe. Even the healers bowed, accepting her command. They had failed, yes, but now they saw a new way forward. A way that combined the power of life, care, and understanding. Elias continued tending the garden, and the Empress moved closer, testing her wings and strength. Together they worked in silence, letting the living world of the palace restore what had been broken. The Empress knew she had made the right choice. Trusting life itself and trusting this small human had given her strength no machine or spell ever could. And as the twin suns set, the garden glowed with color, light, and fragrance. The Dragon Empress stood taller, her scales shining, her chest rising with strong, steady breaths. She looked at Elias, and a quiet thought passed through her mind. Sometimes the smallest, simplest beings hold the greatest power. And in that moment, the palace, the healers, and even the galaxy beyond learned a new truth. That life, in its purest form, could be stronger than any force in the universe. The Dragon Empress stood in her garden, the twin suns casting golden light across her scales. She stretched her wings, now strong and bright, reflecting the green and gold of the thriving plants around her. Flowers and shrubs bloomed in every corner, the fountains sparkled with fresh water, and the air was fragrant with life. She had not felt this alive in centuries. Elias, the human gardener, moved quietly among the plants, watering, pruning, and adjusting sunlight panels. He did not look up immediately, focused entirely on his work. He had grown used to the palace now, its strange machines, alien advisors, and curious court. He had learned how to make the Empress's world bloom again, step by step, with patience and care. The court had grown silent in the presence of this small human and the Dragon Empress. No one spoke loudly or moved hastily. Even the alien healers who had once scoffed at Elias's methods, now watched in wonder. Machines and magic could not compare to what life itself had accomplished. A small human had revived the mightiest dragon in the galaxy. The Empress looked at Elias and spoke softly but firmly. You have done what none of the galaxy's greatest healers could. You have restored life to me, to this palace, and to the garden. I am stronger now, not because of power or machines, but because of life, because of your understanding. I trust you. Elias blinked, surprised. He had never expected praise, let alone from a dragon of such immense power. I only do what I can, he said humbly. Life is stronger than I am. I just help it grow. The Empress nodded. It is true. Life is the strongest force in the galaxy. And now I want the galaxy to learn it too. Word of the Empress's recovery spread quickly. Alien scholars and healers traveled from distant planets to see the garden and the human who had saved her. They expected machines, rituals, or some advanced formula, but instead they found a simple garden full of sunlight, water, soil, and care. The Empress's scales shimmered in response to the plants around her, and she moved gracefully, alive and radiant. Many of the healers were skeptical at first. Surely this is coincidence, some whispered. A dragon cannot recover from weakness with mere plants and sunlight. But when they observed the Empress, watched her strength grow day by day, and saw the human carefully tending the living garden, they began to understand. Life itself had healed her. It was not magic, not alien technology, not complicated science. It was patience, care, and connection with the natural world. The Empress called a council of representatives from across the galaxy. Humans, aliens, scholars, and rulers gathered in her palace, curious to see what had restored her power. She spoke to them, her voice firm, clear, and full of authority. You have all brought your knowledge, your machines, your magic, she said. But none of it could save me. A human, a simple gardener, has shown what you could not see, that life itself is the greatest healer. A single act of care, patience, and understanding can restore strength and hope in ways you have forgotten. The council members looked at Elias, standing quietly beside the Empress. He did not bow or speak, only observed the assembly with calm eyes. Yet his presence alone carried a lesson. The smallest beings can teach the greatest lessons if one is willing to see. Slowly the alien healers began to speak, sharing what they had learned. Machines could amplify energy, magic could manipulate matter, but neither could replace the living world. Plants, soil, water, and sunlight, simple, ordinary life, were more powerful than any ritual or formula. And humans, they realized, had a unique understanding of this, a connection to life that few others possessed. The Empress smiled at Elias. "You will stay with me not as a servant, not as a guest, but as a guide. You will teach us how to heal, how to grow life, and how to restore what has been forgotten. The galaxy will learn from you." Elias shook his head, still humble. "I do not want titles or honor," he said softly. "I only want life to flourish for all of us." The Empress nodded. "That is enough. That is the greatest power a being can have." From that day, humans were no longer seen as small, weak, or insignificant. Across planets and star systems, they were recognized as teachers of life, guides of growth, and healers in ways that machines and magic could never match. Even the alien healers learned to care for life more than their calculations, respecting the patience and understanding that humans could bring. The garden in the palace grew brighter and larger each day, reflecting the Empress's renewed strength. Birds and small creatures, once absent from the sterile palace, returned to play among the flowers. Water flowed freely, sunlight fell evenly, and life thrived. The Dragon Empress watched Elias quietly, remembering how fragile she had once been, how weak, how fading. And she realized that she had learned something more valuable than power, knowledge, or control. She had learned the true strength of humanity, the ability to nurture, to care, and to see life in its simplest form, and through that, to heal even the greatest of beings. Elias continued his work quietly as he had always done, tending the garden and helping the Empress regain her full strength. But now the galaxy watched, learning from him, inspired by him, and realizing that even the smallest, most ordinary humans could hold the power to change worlds. And in the golden light of the twin suns, surrounded by life, flowers, and sunlight, the Dragon Empress stood taller than ever. Her scales shone with green and gold, her wings stretched wide, and her chest rose and fell with strength. She had been healed, not by machines, not by magic, but by a human gardener, and the galaxy had learned the truth. Life itself was the greatest power of all.